Hey guys, it's Brent, and I just want to say really quick, I really appreciate you guys watching my videos. Be sure to click subscribe and hit the notification button so you get notifications so you don't miss any content. Also, feel free to leave a thumbs up or leave a comment and enjoy the video. Hey guys, it's Brent, and I'm back with Steven.
Hey.
And we're here to do another KISS album review. And we're getting kind of far along in these KISS reviews. Don't have many left to go of KISS reviews, and then I'll be doing solo albums after that. But today, we're going to be reviewing KISS's 17th studio album release, Carnival of Souls. Let's get into it.
I didn't know you wanted to point with you.
You point with me. So Carnival of Souls is the band's 17th studio album, and it's their 36th release album overall, including compilation albums, live albums, and solo albums, and stuff like that. It was recorded November 1995 to February 1996 at Music Grinder in Hollywood, California, and it was released on October 28th, 1997. He's keeping a straight face while I'm doing this.
No, it's just because when you were doing that, I just remember back to your first video, and you're like, you sound so much like you're reading off a script, and now you're like, it's their 36th album or whatever.
Yeah. Can I start now?
Go ahead.
All right. So it was produced by Toby Wright along with Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, and Toby had worked with other bands like Slayer before this. And he had just finished working with Alice in Chains on their Three-Legged Dog
Coincidence
episode, Three-Legged Dog album, and just 2 months before starting working with this on this project. And so I think that's why it really sounds heavily a lot like Alice in Chains. And what people call grunge, Seattle grunge, I don't consider Alice in Chains Seattle grunge. I consider Alice in Chains like a dark, heavy, brooding heavy metal. I consider them heavy metal, hard rock. I don't consider Alice in Chains, and this is definitely not a grunge album, even though it's been labeled that. Yeah, and Toby went on to work with bands like Seven Dust and Korn, so it's kind of cool. He worked with a lot of people. They began recording Carnival of Souls 2 months after they recorded the MTV Unplugged special. But the special hadn't been released yet. It didn't get released until March. And this was when Peter and Ace joined them on stage, and it kind of fueled... It didn't really fuel the reunion fire until it actually came out on television and was released as an album. So there was a period here that KISS was working on another album. They were working up on the follow-up to Revenge. But once the reunion tour got into... full force, it kind of sidetracked the releasing of this album, and KISS was not going to release it. They were going to shelve it, as a matter of fact, until a copy of it was leaked on the internet, and there was a bunch of bootlegs floating around of it that were real low quality. And since it didn't contain all the songs from the original release that KISS had worked on, KISS decided to release it.
Well, I'm not sure if that's the reason. If there's bootlegs, obviously there's demand.
Right.
If there's demand, there's money to be made.
Exactly. You're right. This is the band's final album with lead guitarist Bruce Kulick, and in my opinion, the tracks on this album are heavily influenced by Bruce. He co-wrote 9 of the 12 tracks, and he played guitar on all the tracks, and he played bass on 7 of the tracks. Gene only played bass on the songs that he sang. All of Paul's songs and Bruce's song at the very end, he played bass on. This would also be their last non-makeup album to this date. And this would be their last album with Eric Singer until he returned in the remake-up era, which is what I call it. He returned in the remake-up era on Sonic Boom. After this, KISS released Psycho Circus with Peter and Ace and everything. And that was, like I said, it was during the reunion / farewell tour, thing. And they also did Symphony, and they also did the Millennium Concert and stuff like that. And I'll be reviewing those albums as well. The band departs from their normal hard rock style and experiments with a darker, what's grunge like, but I call it a dark heavy metal sound on this album. The band had started moving in this direction with Revenge, and you hear some Revenge elements on this album. Gene has claimed that he was the inspiration for the changes in the sound on both the Revenge and Carnival of Souls. Paul confirms this in his book in the fact that he talked about that Carnival of Souls was Gene's idea to write these styles of songs with the lyrical content, and that he struggled during this album. He struggled with it. KISS did not tour to support this album, and none of the tracks have ever been officially performed live by the band, although Bruce Kulick has done, we've heard Bruce Kulick do them with his band. He does a lot of them with his band, even as recently on the KISS tour. And what KISS is missing out on is whenever Bruce started playing these songs, the crowd went crazy. I mean, this album, the fans want to hear it. But two former members of Black and Blue co-wrote several tracks on the album. Jamie St. James, the lead singer of Black and Blue, co-wrote In My Head, and Tommy Thayer, who really didn't have much affiliation with the band other than kind of being an errand boy and working on Kissology and stuff like that for the band. He literally helped Paul paint his house, clean Gene's gutters. He literally did those things. But he co-wrote Childhood's End. There was a couple other writers. Scott Van Zandt also co-wrote songs. He also wrote songs on the Revenge album, but he co-wrote Hate, In My Head, and Seduction of the Innocent. And Curtis Cuomo co-wrote Rain, Master and Slave, I Will Be There, Jungle, It Never Goes Away, and In the Mirror. He basically was Paul's writing partner. All of Paul's songs on this album, he had Bruce Kulick and Curtis Cuomo helping him. That was basically his songwriting team for all his songs. None of the tracks was written by just one writer, and 11 of the 12 tracks had at least one outside writer. Only the last track, I Walk Alone, was written entirely by inside band members. It was written by Gene and Bruce. And it's the one and only track that Bruce ever has a lead vocal. It's his first lead vocal and his last lead vocal with the band. And I really think they squandered a lot of talent when it come to Bruce, because I think that just like they did with Eric, I think Eric Carr had a great voice. And I think Bruce Kulick he doesn't have the strongest voice, but he has a voice that suits the song that he sings, especially this song on here. Bruce wrote on his official website that this album was either people's favorite KISS CD or they think it's the worst album KISS ever made. Regardless, the album reached number 27 on the Billboard charts and spent 4 weeks on the charts. The first single from the album, Jungle, reached number 8 on the U.S. mainstream rock charts and won Metal Edge's Reader's Choice as Song of the Year. Gene, and like I said earlier, Gene didn't play on any song that he didn't sing. He actually only played on 5 of the 12 tracks. And for the second time at this point, Gene would have the opening track on an album, the first time being on Revenge, which was, the studio album before this one. So we're going to talk a little bit about the packaging. The only copy I have of this is this version right here. I don't know if it's anything special on the inside, because I've not opened it. And I'm keeping it sealed for now, and I probably will eventually open it. But it's just got a shot of from inside the studio with them. And then on the back, there's another shot from inside the studio. And I really like this packaging. I think whenever we did our favorite KISS albums, KISS album covers, I think I chose this as one of my favorite covers.
I think we both did. Just because I like it shows the kind of behind the scenes type things. Because that's real.
Yeah, it's real. It's the guy. It's
and you always get the plaster and the glitz and the everything from KISS. So it's nice to kind of really have a completely different direction.
Right. Yeah, and I like this. I mean, I really like this packaging. It's just simple, but it's just 4 guys with their instruments in their hands, and from what I understand, the story I've heard behind this is KISS didn't even realize that they were going to have a photo shoot that day. That a photographer just showed up and set up and started taking pictures. And Bruce, I read a lot about Bruce has a Bruce Kulick. I'll put the link down in the description. But Bruce has on his website has a really good write up about this album. What the thought behind some of the songs is, what instruments he used on it, what recording techniques that they used. And I got a lot of information from that. And he actually mentions on there that he's bearded in this because he was actually going through a separation at the time. And so he was growing a beard, a separation beard. And it was a dark time for him. And he released a lot of that through the writing and the music of this album. You can see there's not a whole lot of design work to it. I mean, this looks like, something somebody could design that in Word or whatever. And, even the front is just, you got the KISS logo, and then you just got very generic writing, Carnival of Souls, the final sessions.
Yeah, and if you weren't like someone who kind of heavily followed KISS, if you just looked at this and covered up the KISS logo, like, you'd be like, oh, that's some garage band's EP.
Right, exactly. So, but it is not an EP. It is not a garage band. So we're going to get into...
It's the hottest band in the land.
Hottest band in the land. So we're going to get into our favorite part of the segment. We're going to get our favorite segment of the video. We're going to get into the song.
The songs.
Songs is what it's all about.
Yep.
So after everything is said and done, comes down to the song. So we're going to start off with 12 tracks. And it's hard to believe that they stuck 60 minutes of music and 12 tracks on one album. It's really hard to believe that they did that. It's not a double album, but they did. So we're going to start off with side 1, track 1. Gene opens it up for us with Hate. Hate was written by Gene Simmons, Scott Van Zandt, and Bruce Kulick. It was sang by Gene. Gene played the bass, Paul played the guitar, Bruce played guitar and the lead solo, and Eric played the drums. Like I said, basically Eric plays the drums on all the songs. Paul plays guitar on all the songs. Bruce plays rhythm guitar and lead solo on all the songs. The only person that's the variable in all of this is Gene. Gene only plays on the songs that he sings. This song was originally started by Gene in 1993 when he wrote the chorus, and then Scott Van Zandt and Bruce Kulick contributed most of the rest. Bruce and Gene saw this track as the album's version of Unholy from Revenge. It was almost like Unholy Part 2. And Revenge was Carnival of Souls. They was really trying to make it be the follow-up to Revenge. Almost like Revenge Part 2, darker and heavier. It's the track that sets the dark sonic, intentions for the album. And Mercury initially planned on Hate being the first single off the album, but then they chose Jungle instead with plans to release it as a second single, but that never happened. So Hate, I really like... First of all, like I said, I want to say that I enjoy everything about this album when it comes off to the sound of the tracks. I love the way the drums sound. I love the way the guitars sound. I love the mixing of the album. I love the vocal performances by Gene and Bruce and Paul, especially Paul, because Paul really stretches himself on this album. And it just further shows that how good of a singer, a guitarist, and a songwriter that he is. Because Paul was the one out of all this was in the biggest of his element. And you've read his book, Paul really did not like this album. He really
still doesn't.
No, he still doesn't. He didn't like this album. He didn't like doing it. And, I've got a quote from him later on down. I'm going to say concerning this album that he says in his book. But as far as starting off an album, dang. Hate is, it's got all that stuff and where they just overdrive the amps at the beginning, and it's got the Paul talking there, and it's got a little backwards masking and stuff. They play around with a lot of reverse tracking and stuff on this album, and a lot of effects and things like that. Not too heavy effect. The drums sound nice and clean and tight. The guitars are just dirty and grungy. A lot of drop D tuning, I assume, you being the guitarist. A lot of drop D tuning.
Much, other than I Will Be There, probably all drop D.
Yeah. So they just basically, comes out with this song, and it just, kicks you in the teeth. Gene, he comes in with that very first line, that "Hey is what I am." I mean, he's like, and it's got that chromatic, that. I mean, it's just, this song just kicks butt, and I love it. It's the awesome way to start an album. One of my favorite songs on the album, and so I score Hate a 9.
All right.
Kicks butt. So what about you?
I feel like the whole warbly and the mess of like the touching the input jacks and all that stuff that starts off the track really kind of sets the tone, because it's like, no, I can't think of another Kiss album that starts off like that really. So it kind of really sets a tone.
Unholy kind of has that little bit of, but it's just kind of where they're fading in, and it goes that where Gene is just scraping. It does kind of this, but not to where it's pushed and overdriven, where they just jack the amps up and they're touching the inputs and they're getting that overdriven squeal and stuff that they're getting.
Yeah, and the Paul like talking, and it's like pitched down, and it sounds super weird.
Right.
But yeah, and the riffing is really good, and Gene kind of is like doing his thing on this one, and I think Bruce Kulick is a very talented riff writer, and it shows. But I mean, just the whole song is really awesome, and it stays full throttle pretty much the whole time. It does kind of sound like it's heavily inspired by like Alice in Chains-esque, but I mean,
but not as much as some of the other songs on the album.
Yeah. But I really like this song, and I gave it a 9.
Awesome. I want on one little tidbit I read. I was just thinking about some of the things Bruce said on his website. He doesn't like the solo on this record. On this song, I believe is not one of his favorites. But he's got some kick butt ones that come along later.
I'm trying to remember what it is. I scored mine like a long time ago.
Yeah.
I already had him on my phone.
Yeah.
I actually hadn't listened to it this week.
It's kind of more of the kind of like what some of the stuff they do at the beginning.
It's like the noise.
Yeah, noise type stuff, and then he's just.
I remember reading in his thing. He's like.
It almost sounds like a Jerry Cantrell type.
I remember reading in his thing. He said, "I feel bad for any guitarist that ever wants to cover this song because of the solo."
Right. So yeah. So he scores a 9, I scored a 9. So we're going to go on to track 2, Rain.
Dos.
I think it's gonna rain, yeah. I think it's gonna rain.
Rain was written by Paul Stanley, Bruce Kulick, and Curtis Kumo. That's that team that will write on all of Paul's songs. It was sang by Paul. Paul played guitar. Bruce played guitar, lead solo, and bass. Eric played the drums. And like I said, all of Paul's tracks will be co-written by him, Bruce, and Curtis. This is a dark track. And the first track to feature Curtis Kumo as a co-writer. Bruce has said that he loves the dark, nasty riff and the way Paul wails during the chorus. He also loved the changing time signatures. This is a really good song. I've heard a lot of people say, this sounds like Rain When I Die from Alice in Chains. This song they're starting to step a little more in Alice in Chains camp, but they still are not quite there. They're still mostly Kiss. But the riff on this song, the opening riff, the drums at the beginning of it, and how tight the drums and the toms, they don't have a lot of reverb on them. They're just so tight, and and that's how a lot of the grunge albums was. They didn't put a lot of reverb stuff on them. grunge drums like that. But the riff is just so nasty. That I mean, and then that changing time, and then when Paul sings, it's got that swell at the "Tell me what you want." And I love the way this is not. You've never heard Paul Stanley sing this way before. You've never heard "I don't love myself anymore." But but when he goes in that. He just wails, "I think it's gonna rain." But that, that's Jerry Cantrell, man.
Yeah.
That is Jerry That's a Jerry Cantrell simple. You played it in the video, the ant thing that we just did.
Yeah.
It's just so simple, but dang, it is so good. It's so good. But yeah, so like I said, I'm gushing again. I mean, Rain is, Paul comes out. I remember whenever I heard Revenge, Gene came out with Unholy, and then Paul came out with Take It Off. And it's like, wait a minute, what direction are you going on this album with? It seems like the two were kind of divided.
Yeah.
Gene was doing this and Paul was doing this, but they were united. Even though Paul may not have liked it, he sucked it up and he wrote some dang good songs. And so when Rain, the first time I heard this, when Rain started, I'm like, oh, another Gene song.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Paul starts singing. You're like, what?
Well, then when's Gene gonna come in?
Yeah. When's Gene gonna come in and sing something? Never. Not on this one. And I was just like, so kudos to you, Paul. Dang good song to get you started. I love everything about it. I scored an 8. And the reason why I score any of these songs, and I'm going to tell you, I like a lot of these songs. The reason why I score this song, and I mention it kind of later in my closing statements again, and I'll go ahead and say it now, is some of these songs, they sound like they weren't quite developed. They weren't quite ready. It's almost like they were going to go back and do some more work on them, but didn't. And it shows on some of them, or some of them, they tried to borrow a little heavily out of some of the grunge style music, and the tracks ran a little long. And I don't mean necessarily long in time, but they just seemed like they ran a little long, and it's like, okay, you're losing me a little bit here. I'm not as excited towards the end as I am towards the beginning. And so that's really the only thing I have to deduct points for, and the overall quality of the writing of the song or the arrangement or whatever. But recording-wise and sound-wise and mixing-wise and performance-wise and stuff like that, all top-notch. I mean, if I had just that to base it on, the album would be a 10. Because as far as I'm concerned, the performance, the recording, the mixing, and everything about this song everything about this album is a 10. But on this one, I score this one an 8. So how do you feel about Rain?
Okay. Well, I feel like it's definitely my favorite riff out of the whole album. There are some other good ones too. I feel like there is one track in particular that a lot of people really like, or it's their favorite track on the album. And I don't really feel as strongly that way as most people. But I love that Paul's really being open to the idea of the way this album is heading. And he's Paul Stanley. If he didn't want to do it,
right,
he wouldn't have to.
Right.
But he's willing to try. And I think it really paid off on this song because I love it a lot. And it's got a cool little guitar solo in there. It's got a good bit of like melodicness to it, and then there's still a little bit of noise. So I really, 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 really like this song like a lot. So I think I'm throwing in the red flag here, and I'm pulling one of these.
Oh, you're scoring an 11. Awesome. So this is his 11. The 111 you get.
The 111 I'm allowed, and I'm choosing Rain.
Rain's a good song, like I said. And you talked about Paul throwing in the giving up and letting Gene or getting on, not giving up, because he definitely didn't give up. Because Paul puts forth some quality songs on this album. But I think it's because Paul was maybe a little tired. because he had carried the band for so long
Yeah.
through the 80s.
Right.
And now Gene is back. Gene came back with a vengeance with Revenge. He came back with a vengeance on this album. And Gene was wanting to... Now, even though, like I said, I don't know the whole story why behind he didn't play on Paul's songs. Maybe Gene didn't play on Paul's songs because...
Well, he's also kind of... This is around the time he's getting pretty busy being Mr. Hollywood, too.
Right.
So...
Yeah. So, but I think Paul was like, okay, Gene, we'll do this. I'm going to put forth my best effort, because that's what Paul does. Paul always, I believe, puts forth his best effort, and so that's why I think why you had songs like Rain, even though it's a song that he really didn't want to write, he wrote it and he did a dang good job. And the vocal performance, like I said, the chorus, when that wailing he does that Bruce mentioned, yeah, it's just.
It's powerful.
And he doesn't overdo it. That's why on this album, period, he doesn't overdo it. He doesn't get into his vocal gymnastics and all that stuff, because this kind of music doesn't allow it. You know, it doesn't really allow it to happen. So I liked Paul being put in a box, and it's like, okay, here's your box. Let's see what you can do inside your box.
Yeah.
And so, because he really was put in a box. So let's go on to the next track. We'll go on to track number 3, Master and Slave.
The mighty truck we crave, the master and the slave.
Master and Slave was written by the same writing group as the previous song, Paul Stanley, Bruce, and Curtis. It was sang by Paul. Paul played guitar, Bruce played guitar, Bruce played the lead solo and the bass, and Eric played the drums. This was actually the second track that was released from the album, but it did not do as well as a single. But it's probably one of the better accepted tracks off of the album, and the other than Hate and Rain. It's probably the best known track of the album, and it's been called by fans and even by Bruce himself that this is the most Kiss-like song on the album. And I know that a lot of people, they love Master. I don't know if this is the song you were talking about earlier, and if it's not, you don't have to say. But a lot of people, they love Master and Slave on this album. This is their song.
Yeah.
And it is a great song. I love Master and the Slave. I love the way it starts. I love when they break down and they do the da-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na. You know, and Paul... I like the way Paul sings on this. Once again, it's a different vocal delivery than Rain. He's like, life is never what it seems. One of my favorite part on this whole song
Oh, I know what you're about to
is
say.
when Paul goes, it takes you from your dreams, wake up and start to I freaking love that. I mean, that is just...
If you don't expect it,
If you don't expect it, it's a wake up, because he's just like, wake up and start to and then Gene comes at the end, comes in on every time tell me what's the bottom line, tell me. Gene and Paul, sang a lot back up on this, and Eric, all the guys sang back up on it and everything. But I really like Master and Slave. I like Master and Slave as much as I do Rain, in my opinion. I like them both the same. So I score Master and Slave an 8.
Okay. Well... I like the vocal harmonies in this song quite a bit, and I think on my opinion of this song, I think I would put it more in line with Hate, on just terms of how much I like it. But it's still a really good song, and I love the when it does get to that kind of bridge part and it breaks down to the really undistorted guitar and he's just plucking with that chromatic climb up.
Yeah.
And then he really kicks on the distortion and it's like boom.
Yeah.
I love that part. That's my favorite part of the song.
Yeah.
But I really like all of the just how it starts out. It's just the bass and the kick drum and Paul singing.
I like whenever it did do and Paul's just live. Never
Yeah.
movie in my head. I mean, it's just like...
Did I play that too?
This is Paul singing? No, I think you played... I think I did. You might have played it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you didn't know that chord.
Yeah,
you didn't know what that chord was.
Yeah. But yeah, I scored this one, like I said, along with how much I like Hate. So I scored this one a 9 as well.
Okay, awesome. 9 there, 8 here. So we're going to move on to the next song, track 4 on the first side. Back to Gene with Childhood Friend.
Childhood end.
Childhood End.
He's my childhood friend.
What childhood friend?
And you were always my friend from childhood's end. It was forever.
This was written by Gene, Bruce Kulick, and Tommy Thayer. It's sang by Gene. Gene played the bass, Paul played guitar. Bruce played guitar and did the lead solo. Eric played the drums. This is one of the earliest songs that was written and demoed for the album, but they didn't have a title for it. The song started as a collaboration between Gene and Tommy when Tommy came up with the basic chord progression for the chorus. Bruce then wrote the chords and the melody for the verse, and according to Gene, played his favorite solo on the album. When questioned about the origin and nature of the song's lyrics, Gene simply states that they're not autobiographical, they're not autobiographical. They're simply about two friends, one of whom died before his time and the other left behind to reminisce. This is a different song from Gene. I talked about how Paul was definitely stepping outside of his box. This is not hate. This is not
Unholy.
it's not hate. It's not unholy. You know, this is kind of like a, it's a very different song, and it's got some very unique chords in it. I actually like the chord progression during the verse. I think Bruce did a great job writing that. It's even got like a little kids chorus a kids choir that comes in towards the end of it. Great solo. I do agree with Gene. This is a really good solo. This song, it feels like it drags a little. For me, this is one of the songs that feels like, to me, it's a little bit too long. I do like how Gene recycles some lyrics at the end of it, towards the end of it, when he's kind of singing that over that outro. He says, "You got something about you, you got something I need," which is a line from God of Thunder, which I thought is a very unique place to slap this in, But this song kind of does fall off a little bit for me, although I do still like it. So I score this song as 6. I still like it, but it kind of changes a little bit for me.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not trying to beat them over it and everything. 6 is good, but so what do you think?
Okay, so I admit that the chord choices for the verses and for the chorus are interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But I gotta say, it's not my favorite thing.
Mm-hmm.
And children's choirs creep me out.
I know where this is going.
And man, this is gonna hurt to say, but I think this song's only redeeming quality is the solo.
Okay, it does have a good solo.
Yeah.
I like the bridge going into the chorus, that you were just like me, I'm just like you.
Yeah, and the song changes quite a bit
Yeah.
like that. But it's just like I know that when you have like a metal album,
Mm-hmm.
you unless you're just like a deathcore band or something, you got to slow down eventually.
Right.
So they have given us a good bit of like slamming for the first 3 songs. But I feel like this isn't really like even just slowing down. It's just like, I don't know.
Believe it or not, on all the songs that we've done and gotten to so far, I feel like that this is the track where you feel like they're trying the hardest to sound like a grunge band.
Yeah.
It's like the first 3 tracks kind of came, even though it doesn't sound a whole lot like Kiss has done in the past, it's like it came a little more natural. Like those songs could have been on Revenge. In a way, maybe. They might have stuck out like sore thumbs, but they could have been on Revenge. But this song, it almost feels like, okay, I hear now that you're trying to sound like a grunge band.
Yeah.
You know.
And to people
More like Alice in Chains.
to people who say that, the first 3 songs sound like more like Alice in Chains, or they're just trying to copy grunge bands, like, this is not discredit to Bruce, but they're not incredibly hard things to play. If you're someone who's just like, got your guitar in drop D, or you play in drop D all the time, and you're just messing around, you could probably figure out something that sounds similar to that pretty easily. A lot of drop D riffs tend to sound pretty close together because, with drop D, people are normally playing like metal music. Metal music, you don't usually use the major scale, you're using the minor scale. And, there's only so many notes.
Right.
So you would have eventually come up with something. Maybe not some of the weird chromatic walkdowns that happen, but I think Bruce was just playing true to himself, and maybe he was being kind of inspired by that grunge metal movement that was happening. But, like, in retrospect, aren't all musicians copycats?
Well, yeah.
There are people that be like, well, you're not being creative, you're not being unique enough. I don't believe anyone is truly unique. Everyone takes inspiration from something.
Right. We all chew a little bit. We all take in different bites and chew it up and spit out what is unique. What we make our own, but you do pull from other people.
Yeah.
Like even Alice in Chains. Alice in Chains sounds like some early dark Black Sabbath. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, you got to get your influences from somewhere. And it's almost kind of an homage. And I know a lot of people thought that KISS was just trying to cash in on the grunge phase. I don't know if that's what they were trying to do. I just think that Gene had heard it and thought, hey, KISS can do that. Because KISS heard disco and thought they can do disco. They heard pop and thought they can do pop. They heard Bon Jovi metal and said, we can do Bon Jovi metal. And so, KISS is always. I've heard I saw somebody the other day online call KISS chameleons. And I honestly agree with that statement. I do believe KISS is they have very chameleon type qualities, So what do you score this song?
5.
Scored a 5. That's not as bad as I thought.
I didn't kill it.
So that's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. So I scored it a 6. He scored it a 5.
I didn't kill it, but...
No. Okay, so next we're going to go on to track 5. We're going to go back to Paul for I Will Be There.
I will be there. Wanna be there. I will hear you when you call. Give you anything at all.
I Will Be There was written by Paul and Bruce and Curtis. It's sang by Paul. Paul played guitar. Bruce played guitar, solo, bass. Eric played drums. This song is probably one of the most honest songs on the album because it's not trying to be anything other than a song about Paul's son Evan. It's one of the first songs that Paul wrote for the album, and he really didn't have an idea to write about anything. So he's like, you know what? If I can't write about love, or if I can't write about love, if I can't write about screwing, if I can't write about rock and rolling all night and partying every day, I'm going to write a song about my son. So he wrote a song about his son. Paul was, like I said, he was having a hard time during the writing and recording. Not only the music, the type of music that they were writing, but the lyrical content. And it was strange to him. And he made mention in his book that he just didn't get it. But he did try to embrace it. And he wrote a song like I Will Be There as a result. I found it funny that I found this on a video. I saw it on a video and of a making of the album. And I read this online too, that during the entire recording of this song, the song was called the Acoustic Song. That's what they called it. That was its working title, was the Acoustic Song. Because Paul didn't have a name for it yet. I Will Be There is unlike any other song on the album. It's the only one that's acoustic. It has the strings that comes in, and Paul sings in some of the lowest I've ever heard him sing. I mean, those first notes where he's like, each and every day. I don't think I've ever heard Paul sing that low, But then he does a couple lines and he jumps into that, we will never know. He just jumps up, but I will be there. Yeah, but this is probably the song that Paul does his most vocal gymnastics on. But it's almost like I Still Love You from Creatures of the Night for his son, done up grunge 90s alternative rock metal, alternative rock acoustic sound. I love the chords in this song. I love the progressions of the chords in this song. I love the acoustic bass and the drums that Eric uses in it. Some of the big, the big African type drums and the big barrel drums. I love the drums never really come in on it. The solo on this album is probably my opinion, one of the best solos on the album. I mean, it's just so simple, but as Paul is writing and singing from the heart, you can tell that Bruce is playing from the heart too. And I love I Will Be There, even though it's like no other song on the album. I love it, and so I scored an 8.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So when I first heard this song, you know what I thought it sounded like?
What's that?
It kind of sounds like the intro of like a Bon Jovi song, like an acoustic Bon Jovi song.
Right.
Because this is mid-90s when this was recorded. And I feel like early acoustic guitar had a tendency to be recorded a certain way where it's really plinky and they don't sound super full. And they always seem to have just something over them. I can't say what, but there's always like something over it. Rather than just like sticking a mic in front of an acoustic guitar and just like taking that.
Right.
But I really like this song as well. It's right up there in terms of like the songwriting, and you can really tell that Paul is feeling emotion whenever he's singing this song. And as you said, the solo is really good. They often say that good musicians know what to play. Great musicians know what not to play.
Right.
And that's kind of what we're seeing from Bruce here. Is he's being very like methodical, and like he's making decisions, and each note that he has a meaning to him. So props for the songwriting and the vocal performance and the guitar performance. And the bass, for it to be an acoustic bass, has an awful lot of power in this track as well. It kind of, towards...
it almost sounds like it's a fretless bass.
Yeah.
Isn't it a fretless bass?
I don't know.
Because you hear that, it just, when you hear an acoustic fretless bass, it has that sound to it that this one kind of has.
And towards the end of the chorus coming into where the solo is, it kind of just takes over. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
So, but I really like this track. I give it a 9.
I like what they do when going into the solo. They go, "You will know some way," and you get that bling.
Yeah.
I will be in this. Ding, 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 comes in on that solo. Oh, it's one of the few songs. There's this song and another song that gives me chills, gives me goosebumps whenever I listen to it. This song and another song on the other album. Goosebumps. So what'd you score it?
I told you.
What'd you say?
9.
9, and an 8. All right, awesome.
9.
9. So we're going to do the last track. We're going to do the last track on the first side. Track number 6, The Jungle. Jungle was written by Paul Stanley, Bruce Kulick, Curtis Kumo. Sang by Paul. Paul played guitar. Bruce played guitar, bass, solo. Eric played the drums. At 6 minutes and 49 seconds, Jungle is one of the longest running studio recordings in the KISS catalog. They're longer. It was the first single off the album, released in September 1997. It was a top 10 rock radio hit, peaking at number 8 on Billboard's mainstream rock chart, where it became the highest charting single on that chart since Heaven's on Fire reached 11 in 1994. Paul was inspired by Deep Purple's You Fool No One, and the song includes sonic elements that were used in dark metal grunge songs of the time, like Alice in Chains. Jungle is one of those songs, like I said, it starts off with the drums. It's just got that, that, and then the guitar just comes in really simple. And then Paul coming in with that vocal style that you're not used to hearing. Here I go. But then it comes in that, jungle comes alive. And then I love the chorus on this, where his vocal just explodes in the chorus. And that when he does that, wow, in the jungle, you know, I really like this song, but at 6 minutes and 49 seconds, it's a little too long. And it's basically, it gets towards the end, and it's, like I said, it is a lot of Alice in Chains type. They got phasing going back and forth. And I've heard some Alice in Chains. If you listen to some, especially, there's a song on their Three-Legged Dog album. I can't remember the name of it, but I remember it had a long outro on it that was mostly
Noise.
It was mostly
Let's be
acoustic, mostly noise, mostly guitar, and it just kind of fades. And I think it might have been frogs. I think it might have been frogs or something. But then it just kind of dies the way this one does. It kind of deconstructs at the end and just, just kind of dies. I think it would have been better if that would have been cut down. Like I said, I think this was another song where in elements of it, I mean, that part there where he's like, the jungle comes alive and stuff like that, that sounds like KISS to me. You know, that riff. And even the, it's got some really cool chords you don't usually hear KISS doing. But that whole ending and the deconstructed end and stuff I could have done without that. This song could have been about maybe a minute or two shorter for me. But I still like it. The parts that are in there, I really enjoy. But the parts I don't like pulls this song down to a 7 for me. So what about you with The Jungle?
The Jungle is the song I was referring to earlier.
That everybody likes, that you're not a big fan of?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, it's just, you're right about the length of the song. And, there's something to be said about being useful with your time, or being mindful of your time. Because as I'm sure most of our regular viewers are aware, I listen to quite a bit of instrumental music, and some of those tracks can run on like 6 minutes. And I feel like if you're going to run a track that long, you need to present new ideas through that 6 minutes, to keep it interesting. Because if you're, that's the reason almost every track, or 90% of tracks in existence, are between 3 minutes and 4 minutes, is because once you get through the 3 main parts of the song you've written, the verse, the chorus, and the bridge,
unless you're going to change it up drastically and introduce a whole new element, you become repetitious quickly.
Yeah, and if you didn't introduce something new into the formula between those 3 to 4 parts that you've written for your song, you're going to start to get bored, and then you're going to skip the song. So, and I feel like that's kind of what the case of what happened here. And I'm not a really big fan of like the opening bass line. It's kind of really simple, and
they just got a heck load of flanger on it.
Yeah.
I mean, they got a heck, like Gene's voice in Attack of the Phantoms. Lion speaks to us.
Oh man, I'll never get over that. But the only like redeeming quality of this song to me really is, I mean, the solo's pretty creative, but I feel like Bruce could have done better with the riff that was available. Because this is the only solo that I'm kind of like, okay, this is kind of ripping on Alice in Chains a little bit.
Oh yeah.
And so the only redeeming quality for me really is just Paul's vocal performance during the chorus.
Yeah.
And that little bit after the chorus where he like screams. But that puts it down to, like right down to 6 for me. Okay.
So you did a 7, I did a 6. Man, we're in pretty close sync on this one.
What did you do?
I did a 7.
Oh, you said it the other way around.
Oh, you did a 6. I did a 7.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. So we're in pretty close sync so far. So we're going to flip the vinyl. It's hard to believe it's just been one side. So we're going to flip the vinyl. We're going to go to side 2, track number 1. It's my song.
It's your song.
It's in my head.
Nest of termites glowing red. In my head, they're in my head. Look behind.
In My Head was written by Gene.
Is this where you run the intro again?
No, I'm probably going to play something different. was written by Gene Simmons, Scott Van Zandt, and Jamie St. James. Sang by Gene. Gene played the bass. Paul played guitar. Bruce played guitar and lead solo. Eric played the drums. In My Head started out in late 1994 as an odd song originally called Nest of Termites. And Gene had started the Song of Alone, and it had a very surreal and psychedelic lyrical images talking about his head being full of card boxes filled with termites and antiseptic running through his veins. And so when Gene began to collaborate with Scott and Jamie, they took the idea of the song, and took it in a different lyrical content direction, and added some different elements. They added the look behind the mask, basically coming into basically the chorus is what is the chorus, and then they added several lyrical things remained. I think one of the things they did too was, I saw the original lyrics for this song, and it doesn't mention in my head over and over. He says something like cardboard boxes in my head, termites burning in my head. It says it like in my, but it doesn't say it the way it does. And then I think what the lyrics that Jamie and Scott brought in was, look behind the mask, look, try to find peace of mind and you'll find, I think they added that whole look behind that part. I really like In My Head, of course. It's my theme, it's my kind of theme song, or it is what gave me the inspiration for my channel. And basically, but that really is the extent of what I pull from it as far as my channel. It's just, these are my thoughts from In My Head, and this is a song that goes along with it.
And there's a nest of termites.
Yeah, and there's a nest of termites in my head, and antiseptic running through my veins. And I like and I think the opening line wasn't original, but one of my favorite lines in this song is the opening line where he says, I'm obnoxious and no one's home in my head, in my head. I just love that. I'm obnoxious and no one's home. But I like like I said, man, I like the way this song starts, that long drawn enter, that na, 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 na. I mean, you've heard it. If you've heard my channel, you've heard it. And that dun, 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 dun. And what I love is listening to it in stereo, because on one side is just the guitar and everything, and on the other side is just the bass guitar and the drums. So you get that, where I recently kind of changed the beginning of my intro, where it's just the bass, where it's just a boom, boom, boom. And he does, instead of going like where the guitar goes like da-na-na, he does something different. It's like he does a little bit, almost like it almost like harmonizes with it in a way. He's not playing the exact same notes the guitar is playing. But In My Head is a great song. It's one of those songs that I feel like it doesn't feel like it's completed. It needed something else. It almost felt like it doesn't feel like it's really got a chorus. But now grunge songs had a tendency to be like that, or they would have titles that they might only say one time, which they say In My Head many times in this, or it might be a title is a word that they don't even say at all. But it just kind of feels like it's not finished, or could have been something a little bit better done to it. But other than that, I love it. That's the only two things that draws it down for me. But I love this song so dang much. Even with those drawbacks, it still gets scored an 8. Yeah, the title track to my channel wasn't a 10. So it's an 8. So what about you? In My Head.
All right. I agree with most of what you said. So I'm not going to rehash through it.
Right.
But I feel like the song does get it does get a little repetitive. There's not, I think it is kind of interesting where it kind of blurs the lines between like where they are in the song. Because you never really, you always, I think my favorite thing about the song is that Like the first time I listened to it, I was under physical duress because I'm like, I don't know what's happening.
You really don't know. There's not really a bridge. There's not really what would be deemed as a chorus. It doesn't have a chorus verse, or verse chorus bridge solo structure. It has a very weird structure.
I'm going a little off topic here, but that's how we do things here. I actually read something, it was not like so they say or whatever. It was a study that a group of scientists did that if a human cannot detect a beat in a song, it can actually cause them stress. Mm-hmm. I found that interesting.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's why you always have a beat. Even if you don't have a percussive instrument, you have something about the rhythm that is providing a beat.
Yeah.
An on beat and an off beat.
But yeah, that's probably, and I feel like another big kind of like you get Dr. Point from your report card for this is, man, those vocal harmonies are straight out of the Alice in Chains album.
Yeah. Lead me by the hand.
Yeah.
And it's like all those just the multi-layered that Gene did and everything. Yeah.
And you still got Paul singing there.
Still got Paul singing there too, and
Yeah.
And this is a very Alice in Chain, and it has very Alice in Chain elements. The solo is very. I like how during the solo he plays and they kind of stop. It's like the music will dun and dun and start back up. It's like they pause a couple times during the solo. It's like they do that stop, and it's like, and then it comes back in with that look behind.
We're just gonna try stuff and see how it fits together.
It's like Jerry Cantrell came down and sat in that's in there. That's that downward chromatic scale that's happening during the what would be the chorus. I consider the chorus of this kind of like Look Behind the Mask, where he says look behind the mask, look behind the glass.
Yeah.
Even though the song, it's like I said, it's really weird because songs are typically named what is in the chorus. But yet this song is named as what is definitely part of the verse. Or does it start with the chorus and in my head is maybe the verses, maybe the verses are just a couple lines. I'm obnoxious and no one's home. That's a verse. In my head.
That would be a really interesting songwriting.
And then look behind the man, try to find peace of mind is the bridge. Think about that, because if you do it that way,
it works.
It works. You have a very short verse, one line, and then a chorus, and then
a chorus that's 6 words.
Yeah, in my head. It would work. I mean, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it that way because I've never really listened to it that way before. But yeah,
now it's gonna ruin the song for us forever.
All right, so you scored. What'd you score it?
7.
I scored it an 8. Man, we're so close on a lot of these, and we don't even talk about. We're gonna, we kind of knew we both dug this album, just like we kind of both knew that we dug The Elder.
Yeah.
And, different things like that. But we don't really sit down and talk. We like to keep it, that way if we did, this would be boring for us to do. So it's fun. We're kind of discovering these things as you're listening. It's like you're a third person in the room. Yeah. So we'll go to the next song. We're going to go to the next track by Alice in Chains. We're going to go into track 2, It Never Goes Away.
There's nothing I can say, and even if I could, and even if I would, it never goes away.
It Never Goes Away was written by Paul Stanley, Bruce Kulick, Curtis Kumo, sang by Paul. Paul played guitar, Bruce played guitar, lead solo, and the bass, and the drums. It's a very moody song that Paul really didn't enjoy writing. He said in his book of writing this song and several of the songs on the album in general, we are millionaires living in mansions in Beverly Hills. What do we have to be sad about? Gene had recently given...
That's hitting the nail on the head there.
Yeah. I mean, really, it is. I mean, that's his reasoning. It's like, we're singing these depressive songs, and we're we're millionaires.
Yeah.
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 But Gene had given Bruce a 12-string. Bruce. They actually recorded this over the Christmas holiday. In that video I showed earlier, parts of, you see that Bruce is playing with the Santa Claus hat on, a Santa hat. And but Gene had given Bruce a 12-string Rickenbacker for his birthday, so Bruce used it on the
birthday present.
Bruce used it on the solo of this track. Afterwards, Paul said he was happy with the way the song turned out because it was a quote-unquote pretty cool track about all the evil and misery in the world that we really cannot do anything about. And I don't know if that's sarcasm or, it's a pretty cool track. I really like it because it's a cool track about all the evil and all the crap and all the misery in the world that, we can't do anything about it.
Well, I don't know. Probably coming out of Paul, he's a bit of a Picasso, so he would probably, he's going to stare at the world from his elevated, turret at his house or whatever and be like...
Painting and cooking his Italian food.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you right now, Paul, and I would watch it, Paul Stanley needs a cooking show on Netflix.
Yes.
He does.
Please.
Netflix, make it happen. Paul Stanley needs a cooking show on Netflix.
Or he can take the Terry Crews route and do a Bob Ross-esque show.
Yeah. Or he could do, these places are real big where you paint and drink wine.
Yeah.
Because he also
could open one of those and kill it.
He could have a Netflix show where he reviews a bottle of wine, he cooks up some food, and then he paints.
Dang.
I mean, that's or he could have a variety show where he does whatever. I could see Paul Stanley having a variety show.
He's a very charismatic and likable person.
And he's a creative guy.
He's a creative guy.
He's probably the most creative guy in KISS, honestly.
I've never seen his paintings, but I mean, I'm willing to bet they're not bad. He wouldn't put them out if they're bad.
Yeah.
It's just his personality.
But it never goes away. Now, if there is an Alice in Chains song that Alice in Chains
did
not write on this album, it is this track. It never goes away. I mean, even the way it starts, but once again, Paul, outside of his element, but I love these long, wanted, na 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 na, and then when he comes back in, he's like, people, sings over it. The bridge and going into the chorus, outside we look for some, I love that, and then the chorus. There's nothing I can do. And then he's got the do. There's nothing I can say. But that, it never goes away.
I can't wait for someone to overdub you on these tracks.
I know. Don't do that. But it never goes away. It's an awesome song. It's an amazing song, and I swear to God, even though it sounds just like it came off an Alice in Chains album, or they stole a song out of Jerry Cantrell's songbook, they already stole their producer. But this song sounds amazing. It's one of I love this song. I even like the context behind it because And I kind of agree with Paul. The world is jacked up. It's an evil, miserable place. And there's some things in life are never going to go away. No matter what you do, no matter what you say, it never goes away. But you find your happiness in the life that you have. You find the diamond in the rough, and you find your happy moments in the middle of all the crap. But I love this song. It's one of those songs that I kind of feel like it. I like the kind of stuff that goes on around the chorus and stuff. That kind of vocal stuff that they do. Almost, it kind of that really plays heavily on Alice in Chains too. But it's one that I also feel like it drags a little. Not just meaning that it's slow, because I like a good slow dragging song, because I listen to Typo Negative, for God's sakes. But it has that kind of element, so I end up scoring. It never goes away. I score it a 7. So what about you?
I don't know. There's something in my head thought made me think that you were not really gonna like this one. Like, I thought you were gonna be like 5-ish, but I really like this one, even though we're basically looking at someone else's playbook at this point.
Yeah, but Paul
just knocking it out of the park.
Paul just delivers on this album. Like I said, I know this is Gene's baby, but I think Paul steals the show a little bit from Gene on this album, because Paul's like, okay, screw it. You want me to make a sad grunge album, depressing, and you want me to sing my heart out and write good songs doing it? Good, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I mean, because Paul knocks it out of the park on this album, and I like his vocal performance on this song, and several of the songs that he does is just amazing.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, I really like this song, and especially the chorus. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the song. It really is. And like I said, we're basically just looking at each other's playbooks at this point. But I can't help myself. You can't help what you feel. I can't help what I feel, and I really like this song, so I give it a 9.
Okay, so 9 there, and
we're a little further on that one.
We're a little further, but still.
Yeah. The furthest one was Still Rain. So.
Still, yeah. So we're going to go on to track 3 on the second side. We're going to go to Seduction of the Innocent.
Everybody thinks there's always a reason. Need a reason to cry. You kiss the hand.
Seduction was written by Gene and Scott Van Zen. It was sang by Gene. Gene played the bass, Paul played guitar, Bruce played guitar and lead solo, Eric played the drums. This is another one of the first songs to be developed and written for the album. This was a collaboration between Gene and Scott, and one of the few tracks on the album that Bruce did not help co-write. There would only be 3 songs on the album that Bruce would not co-write. And honestly, my personal opinion was Bruce could have helped on this one. This is also one of those from the very opening notes, that and this is, like I said, I hate to keep saying it, but Alice in Chains sounding, very Alice in Chains sounding. And Gene, I like Gene's vocal performance on this one is probably some of his most un-Gene Demon-esque type. I mean, he's singing in that na 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 na, and even then when he's like, you kiss the ring on the hand for whatever he says, it's un-Gene-esque, and it's probably one of the other songs that hits off of the mark the most for me, but I score it a 6.
Okay. I'm going to get my beef with this song out of the way real quick.
Uh-huh.
I feel like we stepped into an Arabian wasteland.
Yeah.
Just with like the scale choices and the way that Gene sings. I don't like this song at all. So I gave it a 2.
Okay. Wow. That's way down.
Yeah, I don't like this song. I've listened to it through.
It's even not the greatest solo either. It's like that. Yeah,
Don't like it.
Keep waiting on an asp to come or a cobra to come out and get you.
Yeah. I don't like it.
All
Sorry.
right. So I scored it a 6. He scored it a 2. And so we don't have much more to say, so we're going to go on. So we're going to track 4. Sticking with Gene, I Confess.
You confess you can't help yourself. Can't sleep at night, you can't go on.
I Confess was written by Gene Simmons and Ken Taplin. It was sang by Gene. Gene played bass, Paul played guitar, Bruce played guitar, and the lead solo, Eric, played the drums. Origins of this song date back to the summer of '94. Gene worked on several songs with Ken, but only one would make it to the album. The collaboration was an odd one since Ken was a former member of a Christian band, Joshua. Gene had heard a demo that Ken made, and the result is a song that's very quite unique in its sonic sound. Ken later recalled being thankful to be able to work and hang out with KISS. But there's a quote I didn't add. He said that it was kind of harsh. He said that Gene felt like that he had a very thick and tough outer shell that would be hard to crack, but once you cracked it, you'd probably find nothing but lust and greed for money and power on the inside. So that was kind of harsh, because Gene's actually kind of a very charitable dude. He has a lot of money, but he gives a lot of money away. He does a lot for wounded warriors. He does a lot for veterans and soldiers. I mean, we're in the middle of a government shutdown right now, and Gene and Paul, they're at the time of this taping, and Gene and Paul they're rocking brews. They're feeding TSA employees that aren't getting paychecks and stuff like that. So Gene's actually a quite charitable guy. I mean, yeah, you know, he likes the almighty dollar, and he won't mince words with you about it. But you know, we all love money. Don't kid yourself. You know, you love money too. But I Confess is it's another one of those songs by Gene. Like I said, Paul kicks Gene's ass on this album. And it's another one of those songs that kind of starts off, look into the mirror, you know. But then once it kicks in, that you confess you can't help yourself, and then it goes into that interlude, that that goes into, and it sounds like it's got strings, and this song also has strings, maybe.
I really should have listened to it this week, but I didn't.
The solo on here, the solo on this song, Jerry Cantrell stepped into the studio and played this solo. Because it's that, I mean, I'm sitting there and I'm listening to it and I'm like, man, Bruce is channeling his inner Jerry. I mean, you know, but now, not discrediting Bruce. Bruce played an amazing solo. He plays amazing solos for most of the songs on this album. But it's just the overall tone, the weird tone that this has. It's got some great elements to it. I love the way Gene sings the verses better than Seduction of the Innocent. It's in a better key than Seduction of the Innocent is. I love the way when he comes in and sings the chorus. And I love the solo on it. But it's one of those songs that it just doesn't feel like it's quite finished. And there's some elements about it that I don't like. It's just not, it doesn't grab me and engage me and steal a word out of your diction, your vocabulary. So it's not a very inspiring song, you know. So it kind of hangs out there with me as far as I'm concerned with Seduction of the Innocent. So I score it a 6.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of right there with you. This is another song, and you know, this is slowly becoming the side that falls flat. But this is another song that's kind of just drony, I guess is a good word to use. I don't have fun when I listen to this song. I feel like it's almost a chore.
Right.
Because by like a minute in, I'm like, I'm ready for it to be over now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is another one that kind of falls flat for me, so it's a 4.
It's a 4 for you. Not as bad as I Confess. Or not as bad as Seduction of the Innocent.
Yeah.
So you scored a 4, I scored a 6. I still feel like we're in the same, we're batting into the same ballpark in these. I feel like we're still in the same areas, even though our scores aren't directly reflective.
Well, it's because you have to be a little bit more conservative with your scores. You've got a catalog of scores to compare these songs against.
Right.
Whereas I can step in here and be like, I give Detroit Rock City a 1.
Right. I disown you for that. Okay, so let's go on to the next to the last track, back to Paul, In the Mirror.
Ought to take a look in the mirror. Every light's getting clearer. See the face.
the Mirror was written by Paul, Bruce Kulick, and Curtis Kumo. Sang by Paul. Paul plays guitar, Bruce plays guitar, lead solo and bass, and Eric plays the drums. The last track, this was the last track on the album, written by Stanley, Kulick, and Kumo. Paul recalls since he couldn't write about rock and roll, he had to write about depressing things. So he made the most of it, intended to base his lyrical content on being retrospective, introspective, and looking at the darker and sadder things in life. So, In the Mirror is, just from the very opening riff, it doesn't sound like any of the other song on this album. I mean, that and then drums just come in and it's very upbeat, very fast paced. Could have been on Revenge, in my opinion. It's doesn't sound quite like, but this song's got so many, that little, and they're so tight on this. It's got all these little turns. It's got the take a look in the mirror. I mean, this song has so many little twists and turns. It's almost like driving a sports car on a curvy road, and they just turn on like they're turning on rails in this song. So I really like In the Mirror. I like that the content, even though Paul says it's a depressing song, I don't really consider this a depressing song. It's something we should all do every once in a while. We should take a look in the mirror and kind of analyze ourselves and keep ourselves in check. I think people don't do that often enough anymore. We just kind of run free and do whatever the hell we want.
We let our egos get big.
We let our egos get big. So, maybe, every once in a while. But he's also talking about looking in the mirror. He's talking about also looking, because he says you see your life go by line, talking about Coke. And so, it's like a lot of Alice in Chains songs. I hate to keep coming back to that. And these aren't slaps, because I'll tell you right now, I love Alice in Chains. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. In my our favorite bands we did, Alice in Chains was one of them.
It's 3 on both of ours.
Yeah, it's 3 on both of ours. So I love Alice in Chains. So that is a good comparison, comparing them to Alice. But Alice, we know they wrote a lot about drugs. Lane Staley mostly, because Jerry, I don't think he definitely wasn't like Lane. Where Jerry wrote a lot of...
He's definitely not like Lane now.
Yeah, well, he's sorry. Anyway, compose yourself. Jerry wrote a lot about dark stuff and stuff like that. Lane wrote about dark stuff, but also the battles with drug addiction. And I think this was Paul's stab at writing a song about drug addiction, even though him and Gene have been mostly clean for most part of their lives, Gene especially.
At least they claim.
Huh?
At least they claim.
At least they claim.
But they seem like it too, a lot of the rock people who are still living that, are infamous for using a lot of drugs, which, there aren't many now. But, Paul's what? How old? 67?
Somewhere around in there, yeah.
I mean, he looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he does. I think him and Gene both look
Gene,
good.
whether or not he's wearing a wig, he looks good too.
Right.
So.
Well, I mean, but I love In the Mirror. I love almost everything about it. I feel like one of the things is, it feels a little undeveloped. 2, there could have been some other things added to it. I do like the kind of the pre-chorus where it kind of slows down for a second and they do dun, 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 before they jump back into the chorus. It's like a little bridge or a pre-chorus or whatever. I love the drums in this. Eric Singer's drums, where they're doing the end, where they're doing the and Eric's like, and he's doing like all kinds of stuff. The freaking drums in this are probably, Eric plays his ass off on this song. It's probably his best performance on the whole album on this song. But it feels a little short. It is a short song. It feels a little short, feels a little undeveloped, feels a little unfinished. But I still, in spite of all that, I still score it an 8.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I don't really like the melody choice for the chorus. it feels a little like like I said before. It's another one of those songs that feels kind of drony. It's a bum 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 bum. You know,
a lot of the same notes.
Yeah, and you know they like I said, it's been a while since I've listened to it, but if I remember correctly, you know, they do have some harmony around it, and I think the harmony actually moves. But your main note kind of stays tonic. But I don't really have anything bad to say about this song, and you know, compared to some of the other KISS songs that I rate around middle of the road, I'd say it's up there a little bit. So I'd give it a 7.
7? All right, cool. All right, so that's going to take us to the last track. That's going to take us to "I Walk Alone" from Bruce. "I Walk Alone" was written by Bruce Kulick and Gene Simmons. It was sang by Bruce. Bruce played guitar. He played the lead solo and the bass. Paul played guitar. Eric played drums. The song was originally called "Waterfall." And it, you know, you hear that at the beginning, and that those harmonics he's doing, and they almost sound like water drops, like do 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 when he does. And he does a lot of backwards masking, a lot of backwards tracking. This song is like a well, I'll get into that. It was originally called "Waterfall." Another one of the first tracks for the album that was originally developed by Bruce and then later collaborated with Gene to finish. The song was originally supposed to be sang by Gene, and then but as Gene and Bruce continued working on it, Bruce was recording demos on a little Tascam 4-track, and he would send them to the studio. And producer Toby Wright heard one of the last demos of when they kind of had it finished, and Bruce was singing on the demos, and Bruce and Toby heard one of the last demos with Bruce singing and delivering the lead vocal on the final edition. And so what Toby decided to do was have Bruce sing it to kind of twist it up a little bit. It was even intentional that it was placed as the last track on the album. The song is long and probably one of the most epic sounding songs on the album. Bruce layers dozens of guitars on the track to produce a massive sound. The track also features several backing tracks, including harmonic tracks at the beginning and the end, and several parts where the guitar solos and even parts of the drums are played backwards also. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it that this is my favorite track on the album. Even though the very first time I heard this song, whenever I heard Bruce singing it had to grow on me a little bit. But just the whole melody of it, and then when it kind of comes in on that da-na-na-na-na-na, I walk alone. I love the whole. And I like that when he says the way he sings, and I got myself to lean on. I got both my feet on the ground. That da-na. And then when it goes into the da-na-na-na, da-na-na-na. And that drum thing that Eric does towards the end. And then it goes into where Gene and Paul are singing there with him when he's like yelling, and I know deep inside of me, towards the end of it. This is an amazing song. This song is 6 minutes and 9 seconds long, and it does not feel a second over 3 minutes to me. This song is just, to me, it is a masterpiece. I'd stick this in top 10 of my favorite all-time KISS songs. It'd go in the top 10, and it's one of those songs that I have chills pretty much the whole time I'm listening to it. And a lot of people don't give this song a chance because it's Bruce that's singing it and everything. And like I said, Bruce does not have the strongest voice. He doesn't have a Paul voice. He doesn't have a Gene voice. And he knows that. He doesn't try to be something that he's not. He sings the song. He performs the song well. This was his masterpiece. This was his opus. This was his baby on the album. And man, he just put so much work into it. And in my opinion, it really shows. So I score this song a 10. To me, this song is perfect. There's nothing he could have done. All the care, I read where he actually had to play whenever he was doing the backwards solos. He had the accompanying track playing under him backwards, and was playing along with it, and to get the solo and the timing on it right. And then they would flip everything and extract his track and reverse it and put it back in. All the work that it took to do this song, I have to appreciate it. So, how do you feel about this song?
This song definitely feels the most finished out of any of them. And I feel like, everyone says that this album was Gene's baby. It wasn't.
No.
It was Bruce's baby.
Gene may have come up with the concept of what they wanted to do, but Bruce grabbed the reins and he ran. Like I said, he was involved. He played on every track. He co-wrote almost every damn track. And, and even played bass on, 7
more tracks than Gene.
More tracks than Gene did. So I think Bruce, this is Bruce Kulick's album. And hands down, I agree with you on that.
Yeah, and so, there's a reason that this one, I feel like this one has this massive amount of production, and, this one doesn't sound like it could have been on a demo tape. It's a proper, fully produced song, and it definitely has the most grandeur out of any song on the album. Oddly enough, and some people may disagree, I think this sounds like one of the most Kiss-like songs. Maybe later Kiss, but I feel like this one, I'm not going to say it feels out of place.
It could have been on another album, I think. I think it could have been on Revenge, maybe, but it could have, it definitely does have a very Kiss-like sound to it. It doesn't sound grungy.
No, and it doesn't, and I don't really know if Bruce's voice would have fit if it was super grungy anyway, which is probably why Paul sings all the super grungy songs.
Right.
I don't think, but then again, I don't know if Paul's vocals would have fit entirely either. So, and
I couldn't imagine Gene singing this. I mean, I'm so glad that Toby made the decision to have Bruce do it, because I can tell you right now, even if the music would have been exactly the same, I wouldn't have liked this song as much if Gene would have sang it, because this is almost like this song, like this whole album is Bruce's baby, but this song is Bruce's baby on this album. This is the one that he sunk. I think, like you said, you got to remember, he was going through a very crappy time right now with a separation, but he's saying, imagine going through a separation. I pray that you never have to go through one. I went through one. And you feel worthless whenever the person that you've become to base your life on is not there anymore. And to be in a place where you can say, I got myself to lean on. I got my feet on the ground. And I know deep inside of me, there's something he says, I know deep inside of me there's a place, though it's not plain to see, But then he says, basically, he says in this, basically the gist of this song is he knows that the person he can depend on is himself, deep inside of me. And I, like I said, man, this song just speaks to me on so many levels. If you've never given this song a chance, I encourage you, you're on YouTube right now, whatever, go look up Kiss, I Walk Alone, and listen to this song. Like I said, you owe it to yourself if you've never really heard it. And if you have heard it and you didn't like it, go back and listen to it again. Give it a second chance. Anyway, so what else you guys say?
That was all I was
So
gonna say.
what'd you end up scoring it?
What? No.
Get out! There's the door.
Nah, 9.
9. Okay, that's good. Like I said, and honestly, if you would have hated this song, I'd have understood. I wouldn't want you to like a song that you don't want to like.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, it's So I'm gonna do my scores real quick. I scored Hate a 9, Rain a 8, Master and Slave a 8, Childhood End a 6, I Will Be There an 8, Jungle a 7, In My Head a 8, It Never Goes Away a 7, Seduction of the Innocent a 6, I Confess a 6, In the Mirror an 8, and I Walk Alone a 10. That's a total score of 91. Divided by 12, that's a 7.58. And on my scale, that puts Carnival of Souls as my third favorite album that I've done so far.
Under what?
Beat out by Alive 2 and Creatures. Alive 2 is a 7.75. Creatures is a 7.66.
I apologize. I haven't been keeping up with his videos the way I should be. I don't have a lot of time lately.
Yeah.
But, I mean, dang, it's been forever since we've done Alive 2.
Alive 2, nothing's beat it, 7.75.
Man.
Creatures, 7.66. What would you rate this album overall?
I'm not going to bother adding mine up because, honestly, I looked at my scores, like I said, which I did a while ago. And I've had a lot of time to, like, juice on it. So I was looking and I'm like, I don't like that song. Like, I like that song more than that. Right? So I kind of just went. This was more objective,
Right.
but I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10 overall.
Okay.
I know it's my favorite Kiss album, like no question.
Okay.
Because I went ahead and I've listened through the whole catalog, you know, and like nothing beats it for me.
Okay.
Nothing beats it for me.
All right.
And I don't want to call it perfect because it's like if I call it 10 out of 10, then I gotta.
Yeah, but you had a song you scored a 1, so you know.
2.
A 2. Okay, you had a song you scored a 2, so.
Yeah. So, and you know, there was songs I didn't score 2. But I mean, if it was gonna be 10 out of 10, all 12 tracks would have to at least be like 9s.
Right.
So you know, and like the second half of this album really kind of falls short for me. Once you get past the jungle, it really tapers for me.
Until you get kind of like I kind of feel the same way too. Once it gets past jungle, I'm sitting here going, okay, when's I Walk Alone coming on? You know.
I'm like, how many times do I press skip after jungle again?
3.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, but up to that point, like I don't even touch it.
Yeah, the first half of this album is definitely killer.
And I'm like so excited and pumped and like the whole first half. You know, I think after I heard this album, I went home and like I learned hate Rain and Master and Slave like 2 days after I heard this album because I was like, these are awesome.
Yeah. So final thoughts. That's your final thoughts on it.
Final thoughts. I'm a scrub for liking a sellout album, I guess.
Well, like I said, I may lose viewers over about what I'm about to say. But anyway, I'm going to do my closing thoughts. Closing thoughts. Even though this is an album that is widely and expressively hated by the KISS community, I feel that it is one of their best and showed that KISS was not afraid to break their own molds from time to time. It has been criticized for not sounding like KISS, and honestly, that's a good thing. Because not all of KISS albums in their catalog sound like KISS. And although there are several albums in the catalog that sound the same, Carnival of Souls is truly in a small, unique class of albums that have their own sound. Although there are some songs on the album that don't sound as well developed as they could have been, and the tracking of the album is weird with long spans of Paul songs and then long spans of Gene songs, or songs that have the same feel, or with the same overall sound, or with the feel. But the feel of some songs, it gets a little long. KISS has never done an album quite like this, and they were really stretching themselves, even though they leaned heavily on the producer and outside writers' influence. Bruce and Eric seem right at home on this album. Gene is in his element for the most part, but he even stepped into some areas he wasn't quite familiar with. Paul had to feel the most out of place, but in any case, I think he did amazing. I love this album. I'm thankful that it got released. It would have been a shame for this album and all the hard work they put into it, especially Bruce, for this to just sit on a shelf and collect dust. Like I said, it shows it's my third favorite KISS album up to this point.
I'm crying.
Isn't that good?
Beautiful.
Bravo. I accept this award. Anyway, thanks for hanging with us, guys.
Yeah.
Be sure to leave comments down below. If you like videos like this, click the subscribe, give a thumbs up. And we're going to get out of here. I'm Brant.
I'm Steven.
And we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.